This video is brought to you by StarCharge, the largest EV charging manufacturer in the world. They are also a provider of residential and commercial battery storage with microgrid solutions.
It won't make it.
Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. And today is going to be a really quick one because the conditions are crazy windy, but we have a lull right now where I want to do a little demonstration just on powertrain control of electric vehicles and how kind of each of these have a different take on powertrain control. We have a dual motor system right here in the F-150 Lightning, but it has a locking differential in the rear. We have a dual motor electric powertrain system in the Silverado EV without a locking differential. We have a tri-motor system here in the Cybertruck, and I want to talk a lot about the software controls and the logic behind a tri-motor versus a dual motor. And then we have a quad motor system in my Rivian R1T. I see a lot of confusion online as to what's the appropriate powertrain choice for a vehicle. There's a group of people that certainly think every pickup truck is meant to go off-road. There's different levels of off-road. And well, at least in this video, we're talking powertrain control with 4 different drivetrain types here in, what's the name of the place we're at, Jordan? Ram Off-Road Park at Colorado Springs. Not sponsored, but it is a cool place if you want to come and have some fun. Jordan, we are at Ram Off-Road Park, and there is no Ram vehicle here because Ram has not made their electric pickup truck yet. They are years behind the competition at the moment. Hopefully they get their butt in gear and really get that Ram Revolution and Ram Charger to market as soon as possible. Anyway, these are 4 different electric pickup trucks, all with completely different powertrain logic. And I'm going to use this one hill to demonstrate the differences. What I'm going to be able to do with the F-150 Lightning is really show you the benefit of a physical locking differential. Now, a lot of you will be commenting if you watch this video in the future and you'll say, Kyle, the Tesla Cybertruck has locking differentials. But at least at this moment in time, it does not, because they haven't sent the software update to enable the differentials yet. There is one redeeming factor with this system though. This one's the tri-motor. Perhaps the software is in there to virtually lock an axle. And I'm going to walk you through that as well here momentarily. So let's start with the most basic drivetrain setup, the Silverado EV. Again, that is not a truck built for off-road. There will be trail versions of the Silverado EV in the future. This is the work truck spec, but it's got dual motor for all-wheel drive capability, but this is meant for towing and hauling and driving long distance, not necessarily for crawling off-road. So let's start there and let's talk about ESP systems and sort of brake-based torque vectoring, if you will. And so we're gonna get that on the hill, and I'm gonna walk you through everything that truck does. I'll walk you through everything the F-150 Lightning does. Then we'll try the Cybertruck, and lastly, we'll end with the Rivian with the quad motor system. Sound good? Well guys, this is the Silverado EV, and it is the most traditional of the drivetrains. I believe it's a dual permanent magnet system here, but they're both open differentials. And what that means is it allows one wheel to spin at a different speed than the other wheel cross axle. And I mean, there's plenty of like graphical informative videos here. I want to get pretty technical, so I'm not going to spend too much time on the basics here. However, with an open differential, let's say you have one wheel that has traction and one wheel that does not, power is going to go to the wheel that's easiest to spin, which let's just assume our front right wheel is up in the air and our front left wheel is on the ground. The front right wheel is just going to spin to the moon, and it's never going to transfer enough power over here to get the vehicle moving. So you would essentially get stuck. It's one wheel drive in this case on that particular axle. Now, I think a lot of people are familiar with that concept, but pretty much every modern vehicle has electronic stability control and also some logic built in to simulate some kind of locking differential or limited slip differential. And it can be done by using the physical brakes. Now, if I have a wheel in the air in that same situation and that front right wheel is spinning to the moon, if I can clamp on the brakes harder than it is to turn the wheel with traction, Like I said, power is going to go to the wheel that's easiest to turn, and it's going to ultimately give power to this wheel. I have not tried this in the Silverado yet. Let's see what happens, and maybe I can explain a little bit as we go up this hill. So let's get it into gear. Let's put the seatbelt on. Let's see if we can generate some cross-car tire spinning. So I'm going to come up this hill here. You can see that back tire's already spinning right there as it becomes unloaded. So my back left and front right wheels have no traction. And what that means is I'm actually completely stuck right here. So I'm going to, again, attempt to throttle out, and you'll notice I'm spinning the front right and the back left. Now that will just happen forever. And I'm just going to put the parking brake on, and I'm going to put it in neutral because you never want to put the stress on the physical park lock, which this vehicle is a rare exception to an electric vehicle. This has a physical parking lock on it for the motors. A lot of electric vehicles just use the parking brake. So what we have here again is a dual motor system with open differentials. What I'm going to show you is what happens when I stay in the throttle longer when I get back in the vehicle. Essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, I know both those wheels are spinning. I want the car to figure out both those wheels are spinning and see if the Chevy logic here is enough to clamp down on the rear brake on this and the front brake on that wheel over there to transfer the power to the two wheels with traction. This I know sounds pretty basic to a lot of you, but I want our viewers to understand this concept for a lot of our off-roading tests to come in the near future. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the stability programs on fully. I'm going to put the vehicle in drive, and I'm going to allow the wheels to spin, and I'm going to stay in the throttle. I'm going to keep it wide open to the floor. And hopefully the vehicle will learn how much force it needs to put on those wheels that are spinning to get me up the hill. So here I am in drive. We're spinning. I'm floored. And you can see it spins. I can hear it grabbing some brakes, but ultimately, no. It's trying. I'm staying in it. I can feel it. ABS is really pumping now. It's trying, but look, it's crawling. I'm still staying in it, staying in it. It's crawling. It's crawling. I've been floored the whole time. So that is truly how long it takes for a lot of systems to come. And it just gave me a message on the screen that said vehicle stuck. Do you want to turn off traction control? And actually in this particular scenario, I want traction control to help transfer the torque. So you can see how aggressive that is on the surface. Again, we had permission to show this at this off-road park, and how rough it is and how sort of not predictable it is from someone if you're going off-road. So having no lockers and open differentials, but just a basic ESP system, which pretty much every electric car will have this. If you crawl an obstacle, you got to sit there at wide open throttle for a really long time, and then you're just climbing things. So now let me show you what the benefit of a physical locking differential can bring you. I'm going to do the same thing with the F-150 Lightning. Now I'm getting in the F-150 Lightning, again, dual motor setup, and in the basic configuration, it's going to be very similar to this. It's going to use the ESP systems. I'm going to get the wheels spinning, and then it's going to try and grab brakes, and I'm going to go up the hill. So we're going to start where we left off, and then there's a switch in the software that's called locking differential, and it just has one locking differential on the rear axle. Actually, the dual motor Cybertruck will be the only dual locker, I believe, electric vehicle on sale, at least mass production. So that'll be really exciting when that gets the software update for the dual motor. The tri-motor gets complicated with software. We'll get into that in a moment. I'm just walking you through the basics. All right, let's take this over. So here I am in the Lightning. Something just so cool about the Lightning. I don't know. I love this thing so much. So let me make sure the settings are correct here. I have locking differential off. I'm going to be in off-road mode, so I can tell the vehicle kind of what's going on. And what I'm going to do is approach here in a very similar fashion to start climbing up. So you can see I'm spinning that back left tire, and I'm not quite spinning the front, although maybe I am. And what I'm going to do is, similar to the Silverado, hit the throttle, apply constant pressure to tell the vehicle I still need to move forwards, and see if it can grab brakes. Maybe this has some better logic. Let's see. So I'm hard throttle right now. I can hear the ABS pumps going. Oh yeah, and she's climbing. So it would have walked its way up there. Now that I have really a lot of weight off, I'm going to apply some throttle. See how, if I can, yeah, come on, come on, come on. But you can see just how the vehicle's rocking and it's a little bit, I don't know, cumbersome. I'm going to just flip a switch, the locking differential switch right now. Boom, engaged. Watch this. No fuss at the moment. Just applying gentle throttle and walking right up there with no issue at all. That is the benefit of just a single axle with a locking differential, is now I am forcing the back axle wheels to turn at the same speed, which means the excess power that was going to the wheel that was up in the air spinning is now forced to spin at the exact same speed as the tire with traction, and it's just going to walk me up. Here, I'll demonstrate it again. It's just so easy. I can just now give it a tiny bit of throttle, no ESP clicking. The vehicle doesn't even know we would be spinning, to be honest. And I'm just walking my way right up here. So it's wonderful, wonderful to have a locking differential for certain situations where you are in a split mu surface. And split mu surface means that you have a different level of grip on the left and the right side of the vehicle, or really in any combination. So split mu is when locking differentials become really beneficial. I think everyone kind of understands this concept. Let's get into the concept of software locking differentials, or a virtual locker. This, I'm actually really curious to see how the Cybertruck does. I've never tried it. I have no idea. Let's find out. So now we have the Tesla Cybertruck Tri-Motor. This is the Cyberbeast version, and physically what's installed in this vehicle is actually a locking differential on the front axle, which would do similar to like you saw with the F-150 Lightning on the rear, but just on the front. And then in the rear, there are two independent induction motors. Induction or permanent magnet doesn't really matter. Permanent magnet's probably a little bit better for this low speed torque from zero, but ultimately with so much power, you're gonna be okay. And the motors in the back of this vehicle are not linked whatsoever. So this wheel does not affect that wheel, which is kind of something enabled by electric powertrains that even combustion guys are having a hard time wrapping their head around. And even me, because I've had my Rivian R1T for a couple years now, and I off-road it a lot. We go on trails a lot, and it is really cool, but you have to drive it completely differently than a normal locking differential situation. So what I'm curious to see is what happens here with the Cybertruck. Now keep in mind, this does not have the software update to enable the front locker. What the rear should do in this case, because the front's just going to be like the F-150, it's not going to do anything. Maybe it'll do some brake-based torque vectoring. We'll play around with that. What the rear should do is it should say, hey, one wheel is in the air spinning, rather than grabbing brakes and transferring power like you would have on a open differential. There's no differential here. It has to then apply power to the tire with traction, and that is a separate motor that needs to put power to the ground. And that is really hard for software to do, because how much power do you put? Do you put a lot, and then the vehicle, you come over an obstacle, then you're still giving power and you're going down. So you need really fine-tuned software controls. And my perception of where the Cybertruck is today, we're going to find out here in a moment, is still very early days for this powertrain control logic. The hardware is all here, but the software needs to come. I mean, the locking diff is proof of that. So let's see how this does in the same, I guess, sort of split mu situation. And my phone key, got to turn Bluetooth on, which it is, but it's not unlocking. Why aren't you unlocking? Tesla app is open. It says it's unlocked. Come on. Let's go in the Cybertruck. So, Jordan, if you actually come over here, there's a few settings in the Cybertruck we should look at, because again, a lot of this is software controlled, and it really is determined by, you know, sort of the modes that you're in. And what's funny is actually Andreas's phone must have unlocked this and not mine. Just turn climate off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to dynamics, and I'm going to go off-road. And I'm going to confirm, yeah, we're off-road. There's a Baja setting and there's an overland setting. I would imagine we need overland for this. You can see here, if I click this, locking differential controls coming soon. We need it right now. I'm also going to put it into, we'll leave it in all purpose, but I might try rock mode in a moment. Also says trail assist is coming soon, and I'll keep it on auto hold. So your predictions, Jordan, anything you think that's going to happen here?
It'll just walk right up.
You think it'll be fine?
I don't know. It's early days with this truck, so there's a lot of things that are happening and we don't really know. We're finding it out as we drive here.
Right, this will be our first time really off-road with the Cybertruck, this test right here. So let's see what happens. This is the big unknown. See, rear steering helps make this more maneuverable than any of the other trucks. And once they get the locking software in here, it should be really good, other than the sway bars not allowing much articulation. So let's get the wheel up here. So now I can tell that back left tire is coming up. There's weight coming off of that. Okay, and I'm giving it throttle. And I'm just gonna hold it right here. So now we're pretty much teetering, more or less. I'm gonna give it throttle and let's see if the software knows that that back tire's spinning and it needs to give the right one even more power. One of the benefits, by the way, I should just mention, of having a dual motor system is even if this wheel is spinning to the moon, and we're, you know, it's not using, or I should say the power is just going to waste, that tire with traction still has its own motor that's getting power. It just might need to get a little bit more. So it is technically better than an open differential because every wheel is powered when you hit the throttle, at least on the rear axle here. Let's see what happens when I hit the throttle. So it feels like that back tire spinning, the front tire spinning as well. You can tell the Cybertruck's heavier in the rear than the front because the front tire is not dipping down. And I feel like it is doing some brake-based torque vectoring. Whoa, it just rolled down. It didn't like that I had both pedals pressed. It does feel like that front tire is doing some brake-based control here on the front as well. And here we are up the obstacle. So this is pretty good as the time stands. A locker certainly would help eliminate that front right tire spinning and needing to use the brakes. I'm also not hearing the ABS pump clicking away like I was in the other vehicles. Both of those have brake-by-wire. This is a physical parking brake and it can just kind of clamp down on the brakes right there through ABS, although again, not hearing it. And being the tri-motor system, that outside tire is getting some traction. What becomes a problem though is when you're on split mute constantly changing, the software has to keep up with what's happening. And you'll notice that it doesn't, even though I'm going this slow, it doesn't quite keep up. It kind of stops for a second and I'm hard throttle and then it goes, oh, here's what's going on, and goes. But this is better logic than even I expected this early on. I'm pretty pleased with this. Let's just do it again. See, haven't changed my throttle output. Haven't changed my throttle output. At this moment in time, lockers would certainly help climb this thing. Gonna give it more throttle, and what's really happening is that outside rear tire is helping me get up the hill with this tri-motor system. So pretty cool. That was neat. Let's go do the 4-motor system and see how that does. So this is a very similar system on the rear axle of the Cybertruck, where each motor on the rear of this vehicle are independently controlled. There's no differential between them. And it's actually the same on the rear and the front. This is a quad motor system, a 4-motor system. Now the dual motor Rivians actually are very similar to the Silverado EV. No lockers, no physical lockers, relies on the ESP system and their tuning to transfer power cross car. And I really think that was a huge miss on Rivian's part, not putting a locker in. Lockers are not helpful, again, in every situation, especially if you're driving normally or whatever. If you're cruising on a trail, they can, you know, basically not help your turning radius. There's a lot of downsides to using lockers, but sometimes, especially in a situation like this, it's nice just to go lock. Now, this with the software controls, this is now 2.5 years into series production with Rivian, maybe even coming up on 3, and that means that they've had a lot more time to tune their software than Tesla. I have been complaining about my 4-motor system in a lot of situations where, unlike a situation like this, but actually if I'm hooked or stuck inside a rut and I need a lot of power to get me out, and there's only one tire with traction, one of the problems with individual software control is I can't put the total power of the vehicle or even the total power of the axle to one tire. What happens with the 2 independently controlled motors, let's say this is the only tire with traction, which happens a lot off-roading here, low speed on some Colorado trails, you're hung up, 3 tires are spinning, and you just need that 4th one to get you up and over. Well, this motor only makes 1/4 of the power of the entire vehicle, but I need it to move the entire 7,200-pound truck up and over an obstacle, and the motor, it's called stall torque, doesn't have enough stall torque to get me up and over. And there's some things you can do to improve the software, but it rapidly heats up inverters, it rapidly heats up motors, and it's really actually the downside of not having mechanically linked controllers, because you're limited to only 25% of vehicle power, in this case, on any wheel at any given time. Now, some hardcore off-road vehicles, I'm thinking G-Wagons and even some others, have 3 locking differentials. They have, like you saw in the F-150 Lightning, the rear locker, the front locker, and a center locker. And the center locker locks the front and rear wheels to spin at the exact same time. And that means that even if there's only one wheel with traction, which again is rare, but it does happen when off-roading, you can transfer all of the power, multiplied essentially, to the one wheel with traction, because again, torque goes to the wheel that can spin the easiest. And when you're locking it, you've got to basically, everything has to spin equally at the same speed, so the power will go to that wheel, and it will be more than just, again, a single motor outputting. I hope that kind of makes sense for people. A lot of people think Rivian's quad motor system is magic and it's incredible, and it is magic and incredible. And same with Tesla's tri-motor logic. It can be magic, and I hope they make it incredible. But it is really nice to have dual lockers, like the standard Cybertruck will have the dual motor, because then you can even get more power on individual axles. Hope that makes sense. Getting a motor spinning from 0 to 1 RPM is really tough. Getting a motor to spin from 5 to 10 RPM is a lot easier. And that's the main reason why lockers would make sense. And that's the main issue with this software control. In this test, I think this truck's gonna do pretty well. Let's start. I'm gonna go into the standard all-terrain driving profile. I'm gonna leave stability control on, and I have the suspension set to high. Now you might notice that the front right wheel on this particular one is a different wheel than the rest of the truck. Well, we were sending it a little bit too hard earlier and popped a tire. So things happen, but I can still get the test in. So let me approach this from the same angle without running over Andreas. And we're gonna come up this way. Just shut climate control off really quick. And here we go. So this thing also may flex a lot more than the other vehicles, you'll notice, because it has adjustable hydraulic sway bars that'll allow a lot of droop on each axle. So let's see if we can even get a wheel in the air here. Yeah, there we go. That back left tire's in the air, and you can see that's spinning, right? Okay, so here we are. We have the weight off the back left and the front right. What I'm gonna do now in just this base profile is apply throttle, and you're gonna notice that those 2 wheels will spin, but the 2 wheels with traction, it's not using brakes to transfer power because there's no differentials here in the center of either axle. It's actually going to be just giving the outside, or the wheels with traction, a little bit more power. Watch here. So even though we're spinning, or we might not even be spinning, here we go. And we're crawling up just fine. Let me see if I can get a little bit more angle for you guys. Here we go. You can see those are spinning. I'm just gonna have to give it a little bit more throttle, and there we go. It's fairly unusual to drive this because you do have to add throttle with Rivian software. The way it works in a normal locking differential, or on a even a limited slip differential, or even brake-based torque vectoring, is you can hold the same throttle position, and eventually, if it either locks the diff, limited slip diffs, or transfers power by brakes, the extra power will go to the wheel with traction. So a lot of traditional drivers, including me, it took some time to get used to this, will sit there with the same level of throttle, wait for the systems to figure it out, and then go. But this vehicle's not actually gonna take any extra power and put them to the other wheels unless you give it more power. So even though you're spinning, you have to drive this a little bit weird, which is just lots of throttle, because now you're working with essentially half the power output of the truck, so you need to give it essentially double the throttle to climb the obstacle. Let me just show you one last time. I'm gonna come up on this even more aggressive obstacle over here. So I'll just come from a slightly different angle. I'll come around from the side, and we'll see if I can get it up there for you. So here we go. We got front right tire spinning, back left spinning. But you can see it's using those extra motors. I have to give it a lot of throttle to climb up to here, which is pretty cool. So pretty awesome that it's able to do this. Of course, I mean, it's got so much suspension travel, which is crazy, but it's got great powertrain control. in a situation like this. Just needs, I think, a way to lock the left and right motors together for stall torque when you're really stuck, to just bump it up over a stuck obstacle. As long as you're not stuck though, this does feel like a pretty damn good way of doing things. My personal preference for consistency though is just having a physical locking differential. And the reason I like a physical locking differential is I don't have to wait on software. Nothing is a guessing game. If the conditions are changing rapidly, if you're driving along a road that's mud, snow, ice, mud, pavement, whatever it is, you have a locked diff and it's just always predictable. You give it power, you know the wheels are getting power. With this, you give it power and you have to think, what's the software doing? How is it reacting? And then we can go. Okay, so here what you're going to look at is actually what I'm explaining to you, but happening in real time. You'll be able to see the power output going to each individual wheel. So watch this here. As we come up, you can see we're getting equal power to each wheel. You can see the back wheel is now spinning in the air, and you can see it's trying to give more power to the back right and front left. The front left is spinning, but you can see here, now it's actually giving equally. If I lift off the brakes and apply some throttle, there we go. It's funny, as soon as I come off the brakes, you'll notice it have to respond real time in software. And Rivian's powertrain control has gotten really good. I mean, this is way better than when it first launched, and it really just ultimately comes down to software. You can see it's giving no power to that back left wheel now. Let's just come back a little bit here. Here we go. Get this out of here, and you can watch it try and figure out where it needs to send power and how much. You can see now we're coming off the front right, back left regained some traction, and now all four are back on the ground. Pretty honestly cool what this thing can do. It just needs a little bit more stall torque, which my understanding is the new Rivian Enduro motor, their dual motor system, actually is much better at handling the 0 to 1 RPM. So as long as you have enough power on a single motor to move the vehicle up and over the obstacle, which honestly probably the rear single motor of the Cybertruck does, or this does, this might be the ultimate solution.
Well guys, I thought that would have been fun to show you the differences in powertrain control. We also did some light off-roading with the Tesla Cybertruck. I stressed very light, nothing is extreme here, but it was fun just to get a taste of ground clearance, breakover angles, and of course powertrain control before the Tesla Cybertruck gets its updated differential locker, as well as potentially better software to control the rear independent motors on this tri-motor system. I also wanted to hopefully use this opportunity to show you just the tough job that a virtual locking differential will need to go through. Virtual lockers can work really well on constant surfaces, essentially when there is a not rapidly changing grip level or mu level. And essentially what the Cybertruck has to do here is, and any virtual locker, Rivian would be the same, is evaluate the surface condition at each individual tire and then adjust motor output in real time. And in an off-road situation, you may go from having a wheel and tire that has the most amount of traction to the least amount of traction in a split second. And there's just no way that the software controls can keep up with that and then appropriately apply the correct amount of power to the other side of that particular axle. Of course, you can also have fun with a tri-motor system and slide it around, which is really enjoyable. And you can see the Tesla Cybertruck has juicy enough motors on the rear to really overdrive the outside for, you know, extreme torque vectoring, extreme sliding, which is great. And I am really looking forward to the updated Rivian powertrains in hopes that they can match the level of power that the Cybertruck makes at any given time on a particular motor.
Well guys, just before we end the video, I thought it'd be fun to slide around a little bit just because we have the opportunity. And one of the things that multiple motors allows you to do is to really do some cool things from a dynamics perspective beyond just like a locking diff. I can actually overdrive the outside of the car with a tri or quad motor system and allow it to slide even more. And it makes for some really interesting capabilities when it comes to like a vehicle dynamics perspective and what's possible and what's not. So just to show you, to have some fun. Cybertruck's kind of cool because when you drive it hard, you really want to drive it like a 911 because it's actually heavier in the back than the front. So you come into corners off throttle, get it to rotate, and then mat the throttle and go. But for right now, I actually have it set to a rear biased handling balance. So I have the handling balance set to like a full drift profile right now. So just trying to make sure no one's around, but watch this. You just hit the throttle and you can come out of corners just like, it's awesome. And because of the handling balance of the Cybertruck, I can come in off throttle, rotate it, hit the throttle, and then you can just kick up plenty of dust. Which is awesome. You know, rotate it coming in under braking, which is great. And just have full control if you want to, which is awesome.
Good point, Max. There's no oh shit handles.
And you can see now it says stability control disabled, which is what we want. So
Perfect.
now there's no control over anything. And it actually has traction control disabled, drive with caution. So that's what I keep running into with this truck, which is like when I use it for its intended purpose, things go wrong. Regenerative braking's off. Now I got to reset it and let it come back to life. But anyway, it is cool what you can do with 3 motors when you have a robust truck, which it should be able to handle kind of sliding around in a dirt parking lot. Well guys, this is sort of a supplemental piece of content in our truck testing, but I thought it was a cool opportunity to showcase different versions of software. When it comes to the Cybertruck's tri-motor system or the Rivian's quad-motor system, a lot of the actual output of the vehicle to your driver input is down to software. So not every quad-motor system like this will operate like the way the Rivian does in the future. I'm really curious to try the new G-Wagon from Mercedes, the electric G. That's gonna have a quad motor system. It might have completely different tuning than this. And ultimately, it's just cool that we're in an era where electric opens up totally new possibilities for driveline control. And I guess it comes down to personal preference. Do you guys like a more traditional, just give me a locker, it's predictable in certain situations, you don't have to think about it? Or do you like the cool quad motor or tri-motor applications that you hope the software engineers tuned really well, which could actually unlock even more possibility if done right? I will say Rivian has worked on their quad motor control massively over the last couple of years, and certainly within the first year of start of production, most of that had rapid improvement. I hope to see the same from the Cybertruck, although that was fairly impressive here, right there with the Cybertruck. So I think we have to hit some more trails. We have to have more fun. Maybe you'll see more videos coming from us. I mean, definitely you'll see more off-roading videos between the Cybertruck and the Rivian and the Hummer EV, which couldn't make it to this test, but will to a future one very soon. You'll see those going off-road more into the future. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully it explains some more. Leave your preferences down in the comments below. Do you like open diffs with ESP? Do you like a single locker, a dual locker, or do you like the software controlled world of individual motors on a particular axle? Thanks so much for watching. See you in another one again soon. Bye-bye. Yeah.